I am a terrible person. See, I got this bag of stuff as a Christmas gift. No, not last year, as in about 6 months ago, but 2 years ago. So that's like 18 months ago. And I have never opened this. Technically, I have opened it and I've looked at what's inside. It is a punch needle kit I got from my sister. But I knew I wanted to share my thoughts on it with y'all and do a whole video on it, but I just haven't gotten around to a time where I've been able to work on this and film until today. But better late than never, I guess. So today we're going to be looking at this punch needle, and this video is going to be basically everything. It's going to be kind of a review slash overview of the particular kit that I have. It's going to be me testing and trying things out and watching me learn how to use it. It's going to be me then showing you what I discover about how to use it. It's supposed to be pretty simple, and then I'm also going to have some, I guess, project inspiration in there and hopefully successfully make a project. So we're going to do it all in this video. I hope you guys are excited. So let's jump right in and see what is inside the punch needle kit. So here's what comes in this kit. First off, we have this piece of fabric. I believe it's called monk's fabric. It's a little 12 by 12 section, enough for a project. We have this Choco Ace pen, which I'm assuming it's probably either a marker or a chalk pen. I don't really know, but I think it's so we can trace out our designs. Instructions were not included. You've got these nice little shears. I don't normally call scissors shears, but when they're in this form, I feel like you have to call them shears. Lots of beautiful tapestry needles in this adorable container. Honestly, how cute is that? And then inside this package are the punch needles. Now, I think this kit came with two. That's my understanding. One's a more traditional wooden one, and then I think this plastic one is supposed to be adjustable. Let's find out. All right, these are the two punch needles. And then we have some wires, and these are going to help us thread the yarn onto the punch needle. So this is what comes in the kit that I bought. Now, you will need something to hold the fabric taut while you punch through it. I'm gonna try using an embroidery hoop. That's what I see online in a bunch of kits. I don't know if this is the right thing, but we're gonna see if this works. Hopefully it does. So first up, I'm gonna pick a punch needle to use. I'll probably use the wooden one for my actual project, but this little guy here is kind of cool because it's adjustable. There's this little knob on the base of it. It goes in here, and I can slide it into these different notches. So when I slide it into this notch, our punch needle is yay long. I can go to the next notch and make it longer. The third notch, even longer. Or the fourth and final notch. Now my understanding is how long this is how long your loops will be that get looped out of your fabric. I don't know why I would need them to be this long, but that's kind of cool that I can customize with this one. So let's put our monk fabric into our embroidery hoop here. All right, that feels pretty good. So now let's thread this yellow Red Heart Super Saver onto my punch needle. And I'm gonna take one of these wire loop-de-loop things. Yeah, no. We need to go down the other way. Because we want the yarn feeding from the bottom of the handle. And then also need to feed it through the eye here. I've watched a few videos on punch needling, so I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing, but honestly, I'm just making it up as I go along. Load it into the punch needle. I've got a nice little tail to start. Let me try a little section up here. This will work. I just need the fabric to be pulled really nice and tight. And honestly, maybe I should double up, because I do see everybody using thicker yarn. I'm going to try doubling up. All right, here we go. I've got two strands of yarn loaded in, and I probably shouldn't be punching in the fabric that I'm going to use for my actual project because it's only going to stretch it out, but oh well. Oh yeah, the thicker yarn stays much better. And now I can show you the underside. Oh, it looks so sad. I think I'm not going close enough together is why it looks kind of bad and sparse there. I feel confident enough that I can get this figured out. I'm going to show you guys the project I'm going to make, and then I'm gonna make the project. Okay, now for the actually fun part, I'm going to work on a project, and it'll be kind of project inspiration for you if you want to give punch needling a try. And hopefully this project works out. So I'm gonna go for a sunflower, and I'm gonna sketch my little design on here. I will turn so you can kind of see it. Also, this is basically just a marker. That does not look centered. I don't think you can see that very well. It's a very poorly drawn sunflower. But it gives me something to work with. Let's give this a whirl. So also I went through my scrap yarn. As you know, I have a lot and I'm trying to use it up, and I found greens for the background, yellows for the petals, and black for the center of the sunflower. So let's start off with the center, and I'm gonna again work with 2 strands because that seemed to just hold a little bit better. Probably it's partly my technique is bad, but I do see most people using thicker yarns. And these are all like worsted weight for yarns. Think things like Red Heart Super Saver, Karen Simply Soft, Hobby Lobby, I love this yarn, stuff like that. I've got my circle here for the center. I'm gonna work around the outside first and then spiral inward. And I think I'm also supposed to pull my tail end to the other side from the start. I don't really know, but I'm going to do that because the side I drew on is going to be the front side. And then I do know that when you're punching through, you want to keep the pointy end with the yarn going out of it to like behind you so that you're not catching it. That didn't make sense. I'll show you close up what I'm meaning. Okay, I gotta turn differently because I don't have the strength to hold this in one hand and punch through the fabric because it's kind of stretching a lot. And I feel like I'm tearing the fabric, but maybe that's normal. I feel like I need to stretch the monk cloth on here tighter. I gotta be honest, this isn't hard, but it's harder than I thought. Everyone makes it look so easy, like you just order a punch needle, grab your yarn, and just start like stabbing the fabric. It's not going quite like that, but it is a very cool little craft. This is a lot more tedious than I'd imagined. All right, I've made it all the way around, and now I'm gonna start spiraling inward. All right, the embroidery hoop is making this difficult because it's definitely loosening as I work along. I have to keep pausing to re-stretch it. Also, you can kind of see how the yarn is feeding out the back, although maybe not because it's black yarn and that never shows up well on camera. So it's been probably a month or 2 since I started working on this project. Summer just gets a little crazy sometimes. And I worked on all this in the same day that I last filmed. I got the entire center done here. But y'all, let me tell you, this absolutely kicked my butt. Now, part of it is because I do have some health problems. I don't have very strong hand strength and I fatigue easily. So that's definitely playing a role in here, but it's a lot more strenuous than I was expecting if I'm being completely honest. Another thing that's probably not helping is my fabric isn't super tight in this embroidery hoop here. Like you can see how much I like push in. So instead of having a nice taut fabric to just quickly punch through, I think that's also taking a little bit more strength. But yeah, this was like 15 minutes of work and it absolutely kicked my butt. So I'm just now getting back to this, and at this point I'm ready to like fasten off. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull it loose on the back end here so you can see I've got the punch needle through there. And I'm just going to cut this loop and then pull that on out. Oh, that looks kind of sad because there's a big hole there. I don't know if you can see it. There's a big hole where the punch needle's been sitting for like a month. I just realized I missed the perfect opportunity to use the little shears that came with this kit. Wasted opportunity. Okay, so this is the front. You really can't see the texture on camera because I use black yarn. Here's the back. So now it's time for me to add the petals. I think I'm gonna swap over to the other punch needle that came in this kit just so I can try it out. Maybe that'll go a little bit easier. And I'm gonna start adding the petals to my sunflower. So here's the plastic punch needle. I'm going to adjust it a setting longer than the wooden one, because I think that might help it go a little better. I don't know, maybe not. And then I randomly decided I'm going to outline my petals in this chunkier yarn. I kind of already talked about how I think some of my problems are because I'm not using very thick yarn, I double stranded, blah, blah, blah. We're gonna see if this Bernat yarn, it's the Bernat blanket yarn, if it does any better. I'm having a lot harder time threading this guy than the wooden one, I will say. Hey, there we go. Beautiful. Okay, now we are in business, and I apologize for the terrible lighting. I didn't feel like setting up the light kit, and now the sun's going behind the clouds because, you know, summer thunderstorms. But we're ready to go, and I am punching from this side because I'm making this be the front. I drew on these like petals, but I really can't see them, so I'm just gonna make it up. And I'm gonna do the outline for the petals right now. So let's see if it goes any better with this thicker yarn. Okay, actually the thicker yarn is staying in there a lot better. I don't necessarily know that I think this is any easier, like energy-wise, but it's actually staying a lot better. So probably most of my issues so far have been because I'm not using chunky enough yarn. But I'm trying to use up my scraps, and not a lot of it is chunky yarn, so we're just gonna have to roll with it. Okay, so I'm gonna swap this up and make it shorter, because see on the back side, I'm wasting a lot of the yarn. It actually looks kind of cute from the back side. The front looks, you know, it's, I don't know. So I'm gonna, midway through this project, because that's smart, change how long it is and make it shorter again. So I'm not using up as much yarn on the back side. Okay, just kidding. I need the longer length. That's what's making this go easier. It's the length. It's been the length all along. See how those ones came out? Because I was using the shorter length. So actually it is the longer length that's making this go better. We got the outline of the first petal onto the next petal. Okay, and I'm swapping over to this other chunky yarn, which is a different color, but I'm just gonna roll with it. Oh, that means I have to thread it again. No. Okay, here's how it's looking with the outline. It's kind of giving me more like 70s flower power vibes versus an actual sunflower. I may go back and add extra petals like between these main ones, but before I do that, I'm gonna first fill in all these spaces. So let's see how that goes. All right, just completed filling in the first petal here. We're back to the stage of this project is kicking my butt. So anyways, basically doing the outlines went really well, and it went really well for two reasons. One, because I swapped over to the longer length on the punch needle, and two, because it was bulkier yarn, so it just fed through a lot more easily for whatever reason. To fill in the center, I did like I did for the black part, and I did 2 strands of yellow. Let me show you this. I have my yarn wound into a cake here, so I have 1 strand from the center, 1 strand coming from the outside, fed them both through the punch needle, so I'm able to use the same cake of yarn but still get 2 strands. And honestly, doing the 2 strands went better now that I have the longer length on the punch needle, but again, it very quickly started to hurt my hand. My left hand from like holding onto the fabric is just killing me. My right hand's starting to bug me a little bit. I definitely understand now why people who make punch needle projects, like they make those really cool rugs and things as like a full-time job. I definitely understand why they use the motorized or electronic or whatever you want to call it punch needles, where they have the little tool versus by hand punching through every single time. So I'm gonna take a break after finishing this first petal, and then I'll probably do like just 1 petal a day. So this is gonna take me a little while. Oh, but before I forget, I wanna show y'all the back because it's kind of fun. Look at all that fluffiness. It's like nice and fuzzy. But obviously, as you can see, now that I started filling it in, you can't see the definition of the petal so much. So that's why I'm using the flat bumps versus the side with the loops for my design. But then the background, I think I'm gonna put the loops on this side. But again, I'll show you that once we get to that part of the project. Let me spend the next, I don't know, week or two filling in all these petals. All right, so we are making progress. So I have filled in all the petals that I've created so far, and now I have to make some decisions. So first of all, let's take a look at what we've got going on. This is the front, or what I'm making be the front. So this is the side with just the little bumps. And then the other side is the side with the loops. It's like super fuzzy, sticks out a lot. So initially my thinking was to make a sunflower with a round of petals and then fill in little petals between and so on and so forth. And then with the background, fill it in with green, but make it so that way the loop side is on this side, meaning I'd punch through from the back. But now that I'm actually at the stage of needing to make these decisions, I am conflicted on what to do, because what it comes down to is when I did the thicker yarn, it was a piece of cake, it was a breeze, it went so smoothly and easily. When I have the double strands of the worsted weight yarn, it took a lot more effort. These 9 petals were a lot of work. Now I used the longer punch needle, which made it go so much better than the shorter one. But even still, it took a lot of effort to fill in all these areas. And just as a side note, when I filled in these areas, I basically just like went around in circles kind of until I filled it in all the way. So you can kind of see the trail of bumps, like I went around and then here and then back up and so on and so forth to fill it in. Anyways, let me show you what I'm thinking. I'm gonna try some stuff on camera and I may end up ripping it all out. But what I'm thinking is I kind of still want to do another layer of petals. And so I think I might do a background layer with this. Now this looks like multiple colors, but I'm hoping I can use just this orange section here in the middle to make the second set of petals. And then to finish it off, I'm gonna do green in the background. I don't have chunky green yarn, and that's a big reason why I'm wanting to use this, because it's a little bit chunkier, so I'm hoping it'll be easier. But I do have this yarn. It's probably still like a weight for worsted yarn, but honestly just a little bit thicker, a little bit fluffier, so maybe I can get away with one strand. We're gonna find out. So let's see if I can add the petals in, and we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and start again. Pulling this tail to the back side. And now I begin punching. I don't know what I think. I think I like it, but I also think I don't like it. I think I'm gonna fill it in because this yarn's a little easier to work with than I think the green yarn will be. So I think I'm gonna fill it in. If I hate it, I can always rip it out, which would mean a lot of extra necessary work. So let me finish this and then we'll give the background an attempt. Here is where we have ended up. I kind of love it. I kind of hate it. What I love is the colors. I just think this is such pretty yarn, that like very fall tones. And I started off orange and then I very quickly got into the green section, but that's okay. We're gonna stick with this regardless of how I feel about it. So here's what I'm going to do. I have been punching through with the needle going that way. And what that means is this side has just the little bumps and this side has the big fuzzy loops. So this side's a lot thicker than the front. What I want to do, I have no idea if this will work, is instead of punching through from this way, I want to punch through from the other way, which means this side will have the little bumps and then the front will have bigger loops because it'll look like grass. That's what's going on in my mind. So I've got to swap this around on here because if I try to punch through from here, it's just going to be tricky with the embroidery hoops. So let me flip that around. All right, we've got it flipped around. So this is still going to be the front side, but I'm going to punch through from the back side. I've got it loaded onto my punch needle. And what I found worked best was slot C here. So it's like A, B, C, D. C's been working the best for me. I want even bigger, taller loops. So I'm gonna go to slot B, which is gonna make this piece stick out even more. Let's see how this works. It might look totally terrible and then I'll have to totally rethink this project. Let's give it a whirl. And this time I'm gonna keep the tail on the back here because this side here really is the back. There's the front. Kind of show you from that view. All right, so I'm gonna keep working on this. I'm just gonna work around and then fill in all the little spaces. And then I'll show you the finished project. All right, I have finished the project. Let's take it off of the hoop and see how it turned out. All right, so here is the finished piece. Yes, I know it's a work of art. I know I'm very talented. Thank you, thank you. All right, so let's talk about my final thoughts on this project. First of all, you might be wondering, what am I going to do with this? And at this point, I don't know for sure. I've had a couple thoughts in the back of my head. One of them is you can leave it in the frame and just make like wall art, which I don't think I'm going to do. The other option is you could use this as a rug, but this is kind of small for a rug. You could turn this into like a pillow cover with a lot of texture, but I have an idea for a way to turn this into a bag. I don't know that that project will ever happen or not, but if it does, I'll let y'all know how it goes, of course. But for now, it's pretty much just gonna exist like this. So here's the front. As you can see, I did the taller loops with the green. Here's the back. So this has the loops of like the flower petals, and then the green is just little bumps there. So my overall thoughts on using a punch needle. So first off, I've got to be honest, I did not enjoy punch needling as much as I thought I was going to, which left me a little bit disappointed. I mean, this isn't terrible, but I'll be honest, I found this way more challenging than some other different random craft projects I've picked up over the years. I had a hard time getting like detail in the project. I thought it would have a lot more detail, but things kind of blur together a little bit. So I definitely found it pretty challenging. Another thing is, I've got to be honest, when I first started doing this section of black in the middle, I was hating it. I was not enjoying life at all. I was not enjoying this project. I was ready to give up, if I'm being completely honest. So I was expecting to like it this much, and instead I was liking it like way down here. Then as I figured some things out and I used like the thicker yarn and so on and so forth, swapped to the other punch needle, it went from this is terrible to I can enjoy this now. So I was expecting to be up here, but my level of enjoyment was like down here. Another thing that I found is it took me a little while to get in the zone for enjoying the project. So when I crochet, I sit down from the very first stitch, I'm enjoying it, I'm in the zone, I'm enjoying crocheting. With things like knitting, I have to work several rows before I'm like, okay, I'm enjoying this. Punch needling was more like knitting, where when I'd pick up the project, I'd punch a couple stitches in and I'd be like, this is just miserable. But then after I got going a little bit, I was like, ooh, I'm making progress. I'm enjoying this a little bit more. But it definitely took me a while to get in the zone. And then once I was starting to enjoy it, that's when my hands would start hurting. So a little frustrating there. Something I did think was really fun though with this was the way you can create all the texture. Now, one of the things I did to get extra texture was punch some in this direction and then punch the green in the other direction, and that created like different heights with the stitches and different levels of texture. Having said that, working in the different directions through the fabric was kind of challenging. When I was working from this back side here, I had to keep pushing these loops out of the way. There were a couple times where I went up through one of the bumps on the front and kind of snagged the work a little bit. Going back to how I designed didn't go as planned. I was expecting I would be able to create a lot more detail and be a lot more elaborate, but this is what I ended up with, and it's definitely off center. I don't know how well you can tell that right now, but yeah, it's definitely noticeably off center when you look at it in person. So having said all that, with all those above thoughts, here's what I would recommend if you want to get into punch needling. As much as I liked the kit that I got, and I really liked having the option of the 2 different punch needles, especially that one that was adjustable length, what I would recommend is instead of getting the kit that I showed in this video, I've linked to some other ones down below that are punch needle kits. And so there's a couple of advantages with those. So the first advantage is you're gonna get everything you need. So I had the fabric and I had the tools, but I had to buy the embroidery hoop and I had to provide my own yarn. Now, I wanted to be able to provide my own yarn because I was hoping punch needling would be a new hobby. That would be a great way to use up a lot of my scrap yarn. So I purposely got a kit that didn't provide the yarn. However, if you get a kit that provides the yarn's probably going to work a lot better and stay in the fabric a lot better than the random yarn that I was using. Another thing too, in addition to the yarn, is a lot of these kits will have the design already stamped onto the fabric. As you probably noticed, I went very freehand with my design, and that's why it's uneven, and I kind of wish I could go back and adjust some things. So if you already have the design stamped on here, it'll be a lot easier to make your project precise and your image turn out nice and crisp and clear. And lastly, of course, if you get a kit, the punch needle that comes with it should work really well with the fabric and with the yarn, and you shouldn't have as many of the issues that I faced when I was trying to figure out which yarn and punch needle combo worked the best. So with all that said, I hope you guys enjoyed watching me try out punch needling, and hopefully this inspires you to try a new project as well, whether that be punch needling or some other hobby you've been scared to try. And of course, if you do try punch needling, I'd love to hear how it goes. And if you're good at punch needling and you have any tips for me, please let me know, because this was a lot more of a struggle to make than I was expecting. But in the end, I will say that I had fun. So hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Happy crafting!